everyone, and welcome to Smart AF. I'm your host, Erica from Autofluencer, and joining me today is Annette Bauer of Annette Bauer Creative. Welcome, Annette.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you on. And I wanted to have Annette on because not only is she just so actively involved in the industry, you see her everywhere. She helps host a podcast, Gearheads and Gasoline, but she also has been, supporting the industry through her agency for years now, and really wanted her to talk about some of her tips for manufacturers, for brands to be keeping in mind. Things are changing so quickly right now, right? The rules of the game are constantly shifting. And so I thought it'd be great to have Annette tell us, what is she seeing as an opportunity that might be getting overlooked by some brands as they're trying to keep up with all of the changing technologies. Annette, first, why don't you tell us a little bit about Annette Bauer Creative and yourself?
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on. I am, and without sounding cliche, I'm a marketing professional and a brand photographer. I've got 30 years of experience helping the automotive and motorsports brands grow with strategic marketing and powerful visual storytelling. So what that really means is, like, I've spent since 2018, I've been published nationally in a magazine every single year. And although that isn't like the pinnacle of where a photographer or a marketing professional kind of lies, it does lend to what I do in my business, which is really helping companies understand how they can build their brand and connect within the industry. Additionally, I am a member of SEMA and PRI, and I am a select committee member for SBN, which I am overly excited about. I love all those ladies, and Erica can tell you firsthand how absolutely amazing they are.
Shameless plug, if you're not involved in SBN and you're listening to this, or you've got women on your team, it's free to join, so join.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, you've been doing it, a long time. You've been supporting this industry. You've been watching the trends kind of come and go over the years, the market shift, the market change. What, Annette, for you, is something that you're seeing as an opportunity for brands, in this kind of current climate of a way to kind of stand out as a brand, or a way to, stay relevant, I guess, too?
You're spot on in regards to how do we help those brands navigate the industry, be more efficient, be more effective, also build their brand so that it has longevity, right? So I primarily deal on the performance side of the industry, meaning that I work with companies that either manufacture parts, they do R&D for those parts, or they're actually in the performance side themselves, meaning that they do the racing. Branding as a whole within the performance motorsports industry is kind of something that is hit or miss, right? So in motorsports, your brand isn't just a logo. It's how people feel when they see what your team, your shop, or your product does. So consistency in what you do, and that's your visuals, your messaging, your presence, all of that is what builds trust. That should match the level of performance that you deliver. Do have influencers or content creators, you very well understand that your customers and your fans really do kind of buy into your personality, right? Because that's what they connect with. So you might have a good product, you might have the best R&D, but at the heart of it, what your audience and your market is really tapping into is the trust that they've built in you. It's not just entirely about horsepower, although that is a big part of it. We do love that part of it. Storytelling is what really comes out with that competitive advantage, and branding is a big, big part of that. You'll hear a lot about differentiation, right? So like, what makes you different in a crowded market? What makes your team or your shop not sound the same as your neighbor? Because all too often, and I hear this a million times, is brands will say, well, we're the best at what we do. And so does your neighbor say that. And so does his neighbor say that, right? You have to really come to the table with like, what really makes you different? And that can be something as like, maybe it's the way that you deal with your customers, right? Like maybe you're available 24/7. Maybe your product is, going to give them a 10th on the track or a better mile per hour or whatever that might be. But it's because you've really honed in on something that made your brand different and made you want to pursue where you're at, your why, if you will,
Yeah.
right? When brands really communicate who they are and what they stand for, that's when you really get that competitive advantage.
Yeah. So for a brand, if I'm listening to this, I might be poking around on my website being like, I don't know, we've got an about us page, we've got a why, we have this list of bullets of, features or, benefits of our product. What would be your process, or what is your advice on how you go through with the brand and really help them identify, am I doing branding well or am I not? Like, how do they even know if they are or not? Like, they might think they are.
For me on my side, especially for, my agency and what I do is a very extensive process. And when I say very extensive, it's not, I know that time sensitivity is a real issue for shops and manufacturers and teams and all the thing, right? They've got a million other things happening. So sitting down to do some kind of assessment, they're just like the drudgery, right? But it's a very important process when you're talking about what makes you different, right? Because a lot of times when I sit down with company owners and I say, like, again, what makes you different? And they come off with the standard because we're great, we're this, they're that. But when I really make them sit and talk with their team and all of the people that make the decisions within their teams to say, like, really, like, think about what makes you different, like, make a list of that. Like, talk about all the things that make you different, because there's a couple of different things that you can garner from that, right? Not only are you learning where your strengths are, areas that you can improve, but you naturally are building content that you can create from. Right? So now you've created all these differentiations, fantastic. But now let's identify, like, what's your personality? What are your values? What are your strengths? What sets your team, your shop, your product apart? Like, and own that identity consistently. That's like a really big thing that, like, I'll kind of drop as a little teaser or a tip here is, like, being consistent in your brand is super important in this industry, because we know, like, this is an enormous industry, but it's a very tight-knit community. People talk, and how you perform either internally, externally, online, it definitely all comes around. You ask, like, how do they sit and look at, like, our about page, or, what our product offering is or service offering is. And really it's about you sitting down and being very clear on what makes you different, what makes you better, what makes you stand out. But again, like, really tapping into what your values are and what your strengths are, and then honing that into what your personality is.
When we talk about consistency, can you give some examples to those listening that could be like, these are examples where I see consistency show up or not show up, right? Because to your point, you can go through the process and have all these brainstorming sessions and, come up with all this great content that you're redoing your website and you've got this, but if you're not consistent with it, it was a wasted exercise in a way.
If you pay attention to, like, some of the brands that really do a great job, we see right now kind of like the rebirth, the reintroduction and reinvention of NHRA, right? So, like, for decades, NHRA really kind of just talked about what, like, the horsepower was, what the car was, where they're at, all these different things. But what they really failed to tap into was the storytelling part of the people who are actually in the sport. So now we're kind of seeing NHRA pull back and start being more storytelling oriented. And they're really talking about, like, what the teams are doing on the track, off the track, during testing, what their R&D is, information about new drivers, all these things. But as part of that, like, rebirth, when we talk about consistency, like, we're seeing a lot of content coming out for them, right? Like, different drivers and different locations and, again, different stories. But it is about being consistent, meaning that you're constantly using your branding. Your logo is everywhere. Where your brand values are coming across in that messaging. And that
Right.
ties into all the different touch points, right? So like not just social media, because even though that is a really huge part of what we do these days, it is one part of it, right? So like
Right. Right.
on your website, what is the materials that you're putting out there? What is, as a fan, when you go to an event, what do you get at the gate? What do you get when you go to a concession stand? What do you get when you go to buy merch, right? Like all of those touch points impact how somebody is influenced by that brand, right? So in this case, NHRA. So
Yeah.
that consistency is more like touch points of things, right? So again, staying on brand all the time is super important. That's your messaging, your fonts, your logo, your colors, all of those things as a brand and whole create credibility and trust with your audience and your market. And ultimately, it does help you grow your market share.
I think that's such a good point. Even expanding how you think of it, I think people will think like, oh, my website's and my social. Like those are two, like, so being consistent, my social, but I love the aspect of what about all your in-person things, right?
100%.
You can't have whiplash of you just rebranded as a company, but then your booth at, your tent at one of the races or at, looks completely different. It doesn't embody that new, touch point, or the team that's there is kind of rude. And that doesn't,
Oh
or
my
you don't
God.
get access to meet any of the drivers, or you don't get access to kind of go along with this whole idea of like storytelling, accessibility, new faces, if you're not seeing those things play out in all of the touch points.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even think about like SEMA or PRI, right? Like,
Yeah.
we see like a ton of different manufacturers who come and they have booths at each of those events. And like, as somebody who's done events for 20 plus years, like, let me tell you, there is a whole lot that goes into making that decision exhibit at an event like that, right? Like, it's massive, it's super expensive. There are a lot of things that go into it. Logistics are crazy, all of these things. But me as an agency, one of the things that I really look at is for those companies that decide like, hey, we're going to exhibit at XYZ, think about like, how are you going to really stop traffic in this massive event where people are just like either trying to get from point A to point B, they're just meandering around because they're like, hey, this is the cool thing that I want to be a part of, or they're there for a purpose, right? Like, I'm here to see a team. I'm here to see a parts manufacturer. I'm here to see the latest and greatest of what's coming out. But as somebody who has spent all that money and time to actually exhibit at that event, you really need to sit down and think about like, how am I going to get somebody's attention? Because I mean, if you don't have a huge booth, right? Say unless you have a standard 10 by 10 and you're in one of the back halls where people sort of kind of, do their thing, that means you really need to step up your game and figure out like, how am I going to draw attention to my little like corner of this giant event? And really draw people in, educate them, make them fans of what your product or service is.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Last little bit. So from an Annette Bauer Creative standpoint, once you get past the initial helping them think through the brand, helping them think through the strategy, what is it that you do then ongoing? Are you helping them execute on that strategy? Are you helping them do all of that social? Do you help plan the events? If someone was to go to SEMA, are you going to help do all of that? Where do you come in after kind of that initial strategy and consultation?
It is really kind of dual fold, right? In the sense of, are you in a space budget wise where you want me to take that on for you, right? Where you're like, hands off, take the wheel, Jesus, take the wheel kind of a,
Totally.
approach. Or are you like, no, we have it in-house, but we just need some help, right? We need some consultation. Right. And like navigating some of this inside stuff. So I offer both different options, right?
Oh,
like
that's good to know. Yeah.
I'll either help you navigate the way, or I'll take care of it for you, right? Meaning I'll help you build the marketing materials. I will even help you design your booth. because I have that experience of doing booth management for so long and understanding what that all entails as far as the logistics go, I'll do your social media, I'll write content for you. Obviously, as somebody who's really huge on the visual side and the storytelling side of it, like I'm always going to encourage to use professional, authentic photography and those photos or videography, right? Those two things are really huge. That's really, really important to be able to showcase what is authentic to your brand. And again, that ties back to your branding itself, as opposed to using like stock photography, right? Where somebody who's going to use your product or service, they're looking to resonate and connect with you as a person, right? Like you're what they came to do work with or see. So if you use inauthentic images or visuals like video, and they're like, I don't know who that person is, I've never seen that person, that becomes like a disconnect for your audience.
I love that. That's such a great tip. We are in the process of redoing our website, and it was really important to us. I mean, we have like industry imagery, and our very first version of the website a year and a half ago, there was some stock imagery. Like over time, we would flip things out, but it was kind of a pain, And so this time we actually did a call for images and videos, and so many people on social sent us stuff. So now all of the imagery on our site are people we know, they're real people from the industry, real images, no stock photography.
I love it.
So yeah, I know. Yeah. So that's really cool.
I think that like a lot of brands kind of overlook that in the perspective of like, it doesn't really matter. They just need to kind of get an idea of what they do, but they don't really understand, again, going back to the branding part of it, of how important it is, that visual aspect of it, right? Because that's how people connect with you.
Well, I think too, it's an opportunity when you think of websites or you think of social, you said it really well. People connect with people. So just having glamour shots of your products everywhere, and especially if you have like a very specific niche, not sexy product, right? Like it's like a tiny little, component. And it's like, so there are ways to integrate imagery, even the people imagery, even into your product, visuals, right?
Yeah, you hit a totally like perfect scenario, right? Let's just say like you don't have a sexy product, right? Like maybe and I'm just going to use a particular product in itself. Like let's just say you have an injector, right? There's not really anything that's super sexy about that. Like it's super functional. It's very important, all the things, especially when you're running EFI. But one of the things that you can do to integrate like the people side of it, humanizing your brand, is take some pictures of the guys who are testing the injectors. Take some video of the guys who are building or assembling or packaging, or guys, girls, not being, one or other. Yeah. But like, that's how you humanize your brand, because it isn't a robot who sits there and does that. And I know that there's a lot of concern and question about AI coming in and taking jobs away. But like, when we talk about, again, humanizing our brand and creating that brand consistency, a lot of it, again, is show the people who do the work, right? Not only is that going to help your employees, like boost their morale, but I guarantee you that if you start putting photos of your employees on your website or in your social, they're going to share it naturally. It's human nature. They're proud of what they do. You want them to be proud of what they do. It just, include it. Like it's a really simple thing to do. Yes, there is some upfront cost for it, but when you start building that library, there is long-term gain.
I love that. That's awesome. That's a great tip to leave it on. So Annette, thank you so much for sharing and giving some great tips about branding and consistency. While your focus is performance, every brand can benefit from this advice, right? And including the teams, and the branding and consistency is not a one and done. It is an always on type, like you're constantly doing it. So thank you so much, Annette. It has been great chatting with you. And we will put Annette's contact information and link to her if you want to chat more with her.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Thanks, Annette. Bye.